one thing we have to remember is never to underestimate the left, first of all. The first thing is to respect the genius of these deviant bastards. You have to respect the genius of these deviant bastards on the left. They know that if they tie you up with 100 little cases, what's the image that I'm thinking of? The Lilliputians with the cords around, right?
Gulliver's Travels.
Okay, thank you. They understand that. Tie up the giant with all these little strings, and the little strings, if you put enough little strings on the giant can't move. You don't have to stop the giant with a giant stone. You can stop the giant with a lot of little strings. So they've tied up the giant of America with thousands of little strings called lower court rulings, as you just pointed out. What is the solution? Trump is taking the bigger issues first, and he's working back down the pyramid. Remember, he's not been in power so much as 9 months yet, Alex. Look at what he's accomplished in 9 months. I have optimism that slowly but surely him and Pam Bondi will get control of the puppet masters. And once he gets control of them, the George Soroses and the other billionaire types, and I'm not putting down billionaires. You guys are good on the imagery and you're fast. Your team is the best. How do you get these images so fast? I love it. Gulliver's Travels. How do you do this? I love these images, but we all remember that. Those little creatures running around with the little hammers knocking
Adam Schiff.
The cords. Yeah, there's Adam Schiff. There's all of them, all of the liberal lawyers that came out of NYU and Columbia and Harvard. There they are with law degrees and hammers and sickles, putting them in the ground, tying down the giant of America. So I think eventually we'll break our bonds and we'll throw them off us like lice. I think that's what's going to happen. Why did I go in? What was I doing this for? To save the world? What the hell was I doing it for? What drove this boy from the Bronx and Queens to not go to law school, to not become a real estate hustler, to not do anything that I was supposed to do in my milieu, right? A businessman, a doctor, a lawyer, that kind of. What made me go to the islands of Tonga, 9,000 miles from home, or 6,000 miles from home, and sit and listen to folk healers who didn't speak a word of English, and I didn't speak a word of Tongan or of any of the dialects of Fijian, and sit there with translators and listen to them as they showed me their plants and pulled out little writings about what they had, about how their mothers taught them to heal. What was I trying to do? Do I know how God motivates us, Alex? Do we know what pushes us in our life when we are given a calling? Why are you on the media? What drove you here? Your father didn't do this, did he?
No.
He didn't do it. So something compelled you to go into broadcasting and be the...
I was definitely compelled because I saw what the globalists were doing, yeah.
Yeah, but there was something within you, though. You could have done it another way. You could have become a lawyer. You could have become a politician, but you didn't. You became a broadcaster, very successful. You put up with hell. The world has dropped a ton of bricks on your head many times, but you were pushed into this area. So I'm saying there are undercurrents in our subconscious, Alex, that go back generations, multi-generations, or perhaps not even to our own ancestry, maybe to the ancestry of the universe.
Wow.
That speaks to us and talks to us and pushes us down the river of our existence. I don't know how else to explain it.
No, that's beautifully said. It's beyond genetic memory. It's beyond ancestral memory. It's beyond epigenetics.
Right.
It is the group collective unconscious. I totally agree with that.
So you say, why did I do it? For one, I was always interested in healing. There was a lot of illness in the family, and we were always talking about health and illness and healing. No one was a doctor, but everybody always talked about illness and health. And I had a brother who was born sick, and he motivated me in many ways. And sometimes I think that I do a lot of this because I wanted to heal my poor brother. Who knows? I saw a little boy who was helpless, and I couldn't do anything, and my mother cried, and he died in a home, a horrible death. So this traumatized me. It gave me PTSD. Like, why is the world unable to help my poor brother Jerome? Maybe I can do something. Maybe I can heal people like him. Who the hell knows what's out there in the world, weird world of herbal medicine, because I knew that the drugs of our world were good for infections, but they weren't good for the kind of thing he had. So where are these healing things? Well, they do exist in places, and many of them were not technological. They were early technology. They were called the technology of God, through the technology of the earth and through the plants and the animal products and the minerals that came up from our earth that we are all part of. And that's what I became fascinated by, Alex.
Incredible.
Truthful.
MichaelSavage.com. Find him on X. Incredible. Best interview ever.
The government fears Alex Jones, who has the largest audience in the country, bigger than any of the networks, the biggest megaphone in the country.
The deep state hates Alex Jones with a vengeance.
Alex Jones is the most extraordinary person I've ever met.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show, and we've got the granddaddy of the modern liberty movement, Dr. Michael Savage, and the father of the modern health and wellness supplement nutrient revolution. I mean, literally, we owe so much to this guy on every front. There's been nobody in talk radio's history that has been as well-versed and wide-spectrum smart as him. There's a lot of smart people in one area or another, a couple areas. I want to be smart in a lot of areas, and I can tell you I am the junior big time to Dr. Michael Savage, A Savage Nation, also his website. You definitely want to find that. And I appreciate him joining us. Some stations don't carry this first five, but I don't want to waste some time, so we're going right to him right now. Obviously, we have the Iran-Israel situation he's been speaking about. We have this huge Supreme Court ruling about these out-of-control would-be imperial lower courts, and just so much happening. Dr. Savage, it is great to see you. You're looking great as usual, my friend.
Well, what a buildup. As they say, it's a tough act to follow, man. I don't know who that guy is you're talking about, but I like him.
I do too. Oh, it's not true. You know you're awesome.
You know, Alex, how the ego works. Sometimes we think we're great. Sometimes we don't. That's how God set up our brain. Because if we think we're great all the time, we wind up in real trouble.
No, I'm the same way. I'm down on myself a lot too. But look, people that are excellent, like Elon Musk or Donald Trump or Michael Savage, we need to celebrate those people, and you deserve it. You've been through hell, buddy. You've been censored, attacked, everything, and we love you. And it's true. We would not be here. Trump would not have gotten elected. I would not be as informed as I was if it wasn't for Michael Savage. So I'm sorry. I'm gonna pour it on. I don't do that for most guests. You deserve it.
You know, you mentioned something earlier that you're the only one who mentioned like my background in health, nutrition, vitamins, supplements. You know, going back to the 1970s, Alex, I don't want to take you off track from politics.
No. In this short little segment, let's talk about your roots.
Here's a book from 1974 that was written before RFK Jr. was into the health world. I think he was still doing other stuff with his arm. You know, he was a man with the golden arm at that time, but he's since become a health guru. But this book, Bugs in the Peanut Butter, was a very popular children's book, and it was about, guess what? Taking the additives out of children's food, the colorings, the flavorings, etc. And it was an interesting book. I mean, didn't change very much. I tried to reach out to RFK when he was appointed by Donald Trump, and I think he's doing a great job. I never heard back from them because the thing is, I could help them with the alternative medicine world. They have nobody helping them with alternative medicine in the Maha movement that I know of, of any prominence. I'm talking about the nutrition, the herbal medicine, homeopathy. They need somebody who knows these modalities to guide the government to not crush these alternative. This is what I'm afraid of. Remember, under the Democrats, people don't know this. In the 1950s, vitamins were illegal, Alex. They were illegal. People were arrested for selling herbs in a pharmacy store, and they were terrified of the FDA. This was under the Democrats, and there was a period in time, I think, when Bill Clinton was president or Obama, they tried to, again, make supplements illegal in this country. Who was doing it? Not the Republicans, not the evil conservatives, but the progressives, the left, were trying to ban vitamins. Would you believe that? Well, you know it.
Well, I know it because you were the guy. I read your book like 30 years ago, but you wrote the first big book. That's what your doctorate is in plants and all that. Yeah. I mean, like, so it's not for people that are into this that know you never really talk about it. You're the guy that's credited as basically launching the whole revolution we live in now that, like you said, RFK surfed in on, which is great.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, I like it. I would like to help him with an advisory panel, but look, Alex, I'm not part of the inner circle of this particular Trump administration. The last one, yes, I was on Air Force One with the president. We ate together. Love the guy. Met him at Mar-a-Lago since. But this whole new regime that's in power, God bless them, doing a great job. But I don't know them. They don't know me.
Well, they definitely need to. Yeah, Kennedy needs to go to the mountain. And because when it comes to, I mean, Savage is the guy that launched the whole modern health revolution. We'll be right back in 1 minute. Stay with us. All right, Dr. Michael Savage, A Savage Nation on X, michaelsavage.com. is our guest here at high noon Central Standard Time. And at the time we've got, I'd like to really try to give him the floor. He can go where he wants to first. This Iran-Israel situation that's still bubbling and very dangerous, but he said a lot of really astute things on. Or we can plunge right into the Supreme Court ruling on beyond activist judges, this attempt at lower court judicial tyranny, little imperial princes, as the president and then Pam Bondi just talked about, and all the other things on the radar screen as we approach the 100th and 60th day of the Trump administration. So, Dr. Savage, great to have you here. What would you like to tackle first?
Look, this is your show. I don't know what your audience wants to talk about. I followed your lead on the vitamin area, which I think is super important. I think the biggest issue right now is what happened today in the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Basically, they just gave us America back. This country was built by European American genius. I know others contributed. We all know that. We acknowledge all of it. But all the major advancements, all of the greatest contributions to Western civilization were contributed by European Americans and by Europeans. And to deny that is to deny reality itself. You can hate me for saying it, not you, but there are listeners who say, but wait, my people did this, my people did that. Yes, yes, yes. But the majority of advancements in civilization that we are all enjoying were contributed by European Americans. And what happened during the progressive revolution that we have just lived through, most recently under Biden, the tyranny of those 4 years, which I don't know if we'll ever climb out from under the rubble. You talk about dropping bunker-busting bombs on Iran's nuclear program, and they're buried under tons of rubble. This nation's buried under the rubble of Joe Biden. And I don't know that we could crawl out so readily what he has done to this country. When you bring in 20 million, let us say, unknowns from around the world, almost none of whom are from Europe, what do you think is going to happen to a nation? Does it get better? Does it move up? Or does it move down? It becomes like those you bring in. It's as simple as that. So Trump's trying to rid us of this scourge that was inflicted upon this nation by the last administration. And today, the birthright citizenship deal is the biggest thing I've heard in years. I mean, what does it mean? People don't even understand it. People were coming in from the third world in their 9th month of pregnancy to drop a baby over the border, in other words, right? They're on an airplane, they give birth, the baby's automatically a citizen. And then the baby, who isn't even a person yet, just a little baby person, let's put it that way, the baby person becomes a citizen, and now the parents become a citizen.
And didn't you coin the term anchor baby?
Oh, no, I didn't coin that. I don't recall that. I did Borders language culture. But anchor baby, you know, some countries have gotten wise to it. People were flying in from China into Canada 30 years ago, and they were in 9th month of pregnancy, and all of Western Canada was becoming Chinese. And a Chinese minister tried to stop it because he said this country will become like China if we don't stop birthright citizenship. Unfortunately, Canada overturned that, and they do permit birthright citizenship in Canada. They didn't even follow the advice of a Canadian of Chinese ancestry. And Canada today does not look like Canada under the Royal Mounted Police. Let's put it to you that way. It's not for the betterment of Canada what has happened, and that's why it's so far to the left. But going back to our country, so we have that victory. What else did we have today? It was another major one. Alex, what was the other Supreme Court victory today?
They said the left, parents have a right to opt their children out of the pedophile, LGBT, trans Satan cult.
Can you imagine how horrible that is to all the people at CNN, MSNBC? What a horrible night they're going to have tonight as they jam bottles up their suitcases. Can you imagine how miserable they're going to be tonight when they realize they can't brainwash another generation of children, castrate our boys, chemicalize our girls, destroy our families in order to usher in utter disaster? You know, when Trump was in the first time, remember how rocky that was because of the opposition? We all saw that his ability to change this nature of the Supreme Court was going to change America for the better through time. And that's what we're witnessing today, is changing America for the better. There's a salvation coming. Look at the freak show you're showing here. But, you know, Alex, I have to say something about this. I think it's humorous. It's funny. They're not hurting anybody. I understand that. And I don't care what people do behind closed doors. If a big fat guy that weighs 400 pounds wants to be his mother and wear her shoes and her wig and her dress and he enjoys it, Hey, he could do that. But I've said for years, stay away from our children. You cross that line, you're going to have hell to pay for it. That's what's going on now. They're finally getting a taste of what America is all about, which is children, children, children. The mama bear said, enough of this. We don't want you doing this to our boys. We want our boys to grow up as men. We want our men to get married and have a wife. We then want our boy and his wife to have babies. We want our daughter to grow up and have a husband and have babies. We don't want them to be confused at age 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's what this is all about. It's giving rights back to the parents. I don't see how this is homophobic. I think this is sanity, finally, from the Supreme Court. Good day. It's a good day for America.
And you made a point that I've seen nobody make, really, in the last 150-something days with Trump back in, and today, watching the ruling. Trump's big success is even going back 8 years ago and 7 years ago, 6 years ago, with those Supreme Court people he put in that weren't perfect, but way better than what we were gonna have. And now we're seeing massive tsunami ripple effects from that action that we put in the bank by getting him in the first time. And now he's set to probably get more appointments this time. This is do or die time, and this is miraculous that historically evil builds up in the last few minutes or in the 11th hour, humanity wakes up. And it looks like it's happening again.
Supreme Court says parents can pull kids from classes with LGBTQ themed books. You imagine what the liberals are going to be screaming about today? Imagine the headlines. How dare them ban books? You could just see the headlines. Trump bans books. Trump burns books. Trump is Hitler. Here it comes, right, Alex? You know what's coming.
Oh, yeah, they've already been doing it. And no, it's not banning liquor to not give it to a 10-year-old. It's not banning cigarettes to not give it to a 8-year-old. It's you got to be 18 to join the military. It's not banning books. It's the left that's been censoring and lawfaring and all of this, not Trump. Taking out of 6th grade classes graphic novels that are just, I can't even describe them on air. They arrest parents that read them at school board meetings, saying it's profane to read it at a public event with adults, but you can give it to a little kid.
Absolutely. And of course, this is the world upside down. It's the Alice in Wonderland effect of progressivism, which is everything. Let's put it this way. A guy I know wrote a book called Liberalism is a Mental Disorder. He wrote it in 2005. People thought it was humorous. They thought it was cute. They thought it was clever. They thought it was funny. But this guy was actually very serious when he wrote this title. And he said they have everything backwards because they're mentally ill. In plain English, they're mentally ill. People who do stuff like this, Alex, you got to admit they're not sane. Are they sane?
Oh, you nailed it.
Do this to children?
You were the first to really nail it decades ago. So let me ask you this. What is the bottom of leftist mental illness? Is there no bottom, or is the bottom when we finally wake up and say no, which we're starting to hit? And now as they realize that the world's waking up to them, not just here, but around the world, they, like any cult, are turning inward and becoming more hardcore. And I see them turning on each other and burning themselves out. What do you think is going to happen? Because last time you were on, I said, is the Democratic Party the lowest poll numbers in its history? Is it dead? You said, no, they're not done yet.
Remember I said that. I said, no, they're just starting. And of course, then the riots came. In LA, particularly. The worst was in LA, in the liberal state in which I live. It was shocking to see this permitted to go on. And so when Trump brings in the National Guard, right away, the Hitler card comes out. When Trump calls in the Marines in the background, out comes the Mussolini, the Hitler, the Pol Pot, Stalin. All of the cards come up again. And of course, the governor, unfortunately, is helpless. Or he is he's doing it. I don't understand it. He's stupid. He isn't. Gavin wants to be president. Why would he permit this to go on, knowing that not only do people in California hate this lawlessness, but the whole world is watching a state that was once the most beautiful state in the world melt down? Why does he not step in and take control of the fringe? It's only a fringe left that is controlling the state politics. It's not the majority of this state. Years ago, I called it the porn belt and the corn belt, okay? It's the porn belt in California that is controlling all of this madness. But even those in the porn belt don't want it anymore. They just put in as mayor in San Francisco a descendant of the Levi Strauss fortune. He's at most a moderate centrist, okay? Even he was brought in to stop the meltdown of this once beautiful city, San Francisco, when you had homeless people able to pull their pants down and defecate outside a restaurant window, and the cops couldn't break their skull open and drag them off and throw them into a mental hospital. We had to watch this go on. And of course, this burning and looting, I have a solution, which is this is the Saudi solution to that one. The Saudis have the right solution for that kind of work. But then we don't live in Saudi Arabia quite yet, nor do I say we should, Alex. But there's not enough, let us say, toughness allowed by the police to stop this behavior. Because the only thing these mentally ill, spoiled brat bastards will understand is a nightstick on the head, in plain English.
Well, let's talk about
what else can I...
No, I totally agree. Let's talk about the No Kings protest. They really tried to have their uprising. You have this bizarre Tim Walz appointee. They tried to say it was a MAGA person, but now says he was trying to kill Amy Klobuchar and others for Tim Walz. Very suspicious. But now because the John Podesta plan, where he said they would have an uprising this summer to make Trump overreact and drive him from power, a public admission of trying to create a civil war, that seems to have stalled out and failed as well. As you were saying, another victory? Or do you think we should expect more this summer?
I think the people themselves, 99%, maybe 95% of the people, want these people constrained, arrested, and taken off the public square. I think they want them gone. I don't know any liberals living in this state who want to see their city burning. I don't know anyone in this state who wants any more of this crap to go on when they're trying to drive to work to have these lunatics stopping them on a highway. They're sick of it. And they want to see them rounded up and thrown away, and they never want to see them again. I've had enough of this. I live in the state. I haven't left the state because I still love it. Okay, I live outside the city. But, you know, the city is getting cleaner here, San Francisco, since the new mayorship. And we got a DA like a year or two ago. She's a little more conservative. A lot of the madness that we saw in San Francisco stopped. But LA, it's worse than ever because of that lunatic, smiling, smirking Smurf mayor. Where'd she come from? What's her name? Bass with that Smurf
an
face?
Admitted former intelligence agent of Cuba. She admits it.
Well, I don't think she's the only intelligence agent from Cuba. I think we had one running DHS in the last administration, by the way. The gentleman from Cuba himself, a Cuban immigrant. Remember him?
Mayorkas.
The man in charge. Mayorkas. Really? And he came from Cuba, but he wasn't one of the Mario boat invasion people who came here to do good. I think he was sent here to do bad by what I saw him doing. I don't understand why Trump hasn't kind of opened this up. I guess he has bigger issues to handle than vengeance. And he understands that it's maybe low on his priority to get to the bottom of these people.
Well, I can tell you, I've talked, Michael, to his top prosecutors. They said, listen, we got 5,000 ICE enforcement. We got 30-something thousand FBI agents. We've only got a few thousand real prosecutors. And because of these courts blocking all of his first agenda, we're constantly battling these lower courts and can't even get the first orders done. So we have to go back to Trump and say, okay, do we not do these orders or these orders? The answer is they are not genies. They don't have a magic wand. And that's the problem of the left. When they bring their own lawless chaos to obstruct, and then only totalitarianism would counter that. It's not totalitarianism when you trigger the chaos and then you're in a war. That's when due process goes out by necessity. We don't want to be totalitarian, but the left and the Podesta plan, as you know, says they're going to push Trump into that. So how do we handle that?
Well, of course they want chaos, and they're one thing we have to remember is never to underestimate the left, first of all. The first thing is to respect the genius of these deviant bastards. You have to respect the genius of these deviant bastards on the left. They know that if they tie you up with 100 little cases, what's the image that I'm thinking of? The Lilliputians with the cords around, right?
Gulliver Travels.
Okay, thank you. They understand that. Tie up the giant with all these little strings, and the little strings, if you put enough little strings on the giant can't move. You don't have to stop the giant with a giant stone. You can stop the giant with a lot of little strings. So they've tied up the giant of America with thousands of little strings called lower court rulings, as you just pointed out. What is the solution? Trump is taking the bigger issues first, and he's working back down the pyramid. Remember, he's not been in power so much as 9 months yet, Alex. Look at what he's accomplished in 9 months. I have optimism that slowly but surely him and Pam Bondi will get control of the puppet masters. And once he gets control of them, the George Soroses and the other billionaire types, and I'm not putting down billionaires. You guys are good on the imagery and you're fast. Your team is the best. How do you get these images so fast? I love it. Gulliver's Travels. How do you do this? I love these images, but we all remember that. Those little creatures running around with the little hammers knocking
Adam Schiff.
the doors. Yeah, there's Adam Schiff. There's all of them, all of the liberal lawyers that came out of NYU and Columbia and Harvard. There they are with law degrees and hammers and sickles, putting them in the ground, tying down the giant of America. So I think eventually we'll break our bonds and we'll throw them off us like lice. I think that's what's going to happen.
Beautiful. I know you said you might be able to stay a little bit longer than the bottom of the hour. I want to come back on Maha, the health revolution, and your original book that launched the whole, because I've read several of them, on herbs, on that, and what you advise Kennedy to do, because that's something that really is your true gravitas. People think of you as helping launch the whole modern populist, common sense, conservative Americana revolution, but you're really the OG on that as well. But I also want to talk some about Israel. I know you're not anti-Israel. I'm not either. I've never even been overall, had a hard on for Netanyahu, but he's in such political trouble. He stood down on October 7th. He wants these wars to continue. And I just wanted to get in the 5-6 minutes to break, your overall view on what I see as the biggest danger to Trump being able to get America back on track, which he's doing, is the Ukraine war that NATO wants to keep us in and expand, and Israel-Iran. Certainly no fan of the mullahs either, but I know most of his analysts are telling him don't go to full war. Thank God he pulled back from it. But you put out a tweet, and I wanted you to fill us in on what you exactly meant there, where you said, where we really need regime change is Israel. What did you mean by that?
You want me to do that now or after the break? I do it now.
We got 6 minutes. You can start. Go ahead.
Well, it's a big topic. First of all, I level with make the playing field level. I am a practicing Jewish person. Let's start with that. Meaning, I follow God's rules. Did something just break down here?
No, you're good. You're on air, Michael. You're good.
I heard something pop. Okay, I follow the Bible as best I can, as imperfectly as I do. Okay, I'm a fallen angel. Let's put it that way. I don't hit all 10 every day, but I know what they are. Let's start with that. And when I go in and I pray to God. I don't pray to an idol. I don't pray to a prime minister. I don't pray to a political party. I pray to the one true God, who is the God of Jews, Christians, and Muslims, by the way. It's the same God. I understand what this is, and I understand how it's been distorted. I'm not a fan of Netanyahu at this time for 3 reasons. I think he's let this war go on too long. I think there's a time to use a hammer and a time not to use a hammer. And I think there's a time to pull back the hammer and sue for peace right now. And yes, it will leave some of Hamas in place. Yes, it will not cleanse the entire area of all those who could do harm to the state of Israel. But there's a time to stop, and that time is now. Because I believe at this point, most of the world has turned against Israel. That's the reality of the situation. And I think that any country that does not have term limits, if we look around the globe, Alex, the countries that seem to be in the worst shape in terms of kind of authoritarian control are those without term limits. You could start with Russia. How long has Putin been in power? Okay, maybe there would be a different Russia if there was a different person, and maybe he would have sued for peace by now and work a deal out with that maniac in Ukraine. You talk about a dictator. The dictator in Ukraine banned elections. Then suddenly they got him a suit out of Filene's basement to go to NATO. Where does character Zelensky get it? What's he going to NATO for? He's not a member of NATO. What'd they bring the stooge over there, the marionette? Again, you know why. They want permanent war. So getting back to Israel, no term limits. Netanyahu has been in power far too long. I think there was a time he was a great hammer for the country. And I think the time has come for the opposition party to seize power. And people say, well, you want liberals running Israel? They're the worst people on earth. I want to remind everybody that some great war heroes happen to be members of the opposition party in Israel. I am talking about former 4-star generals who are war heroes in Israel, who want the war ended. They want to make peace with the Palestinians. They don't want to kill every member of Hamas and throw all of the Palestinians out of Gaza. This would be the worst. And I've said this I don't know who I said it. Okay, there's a plan floating around coming out of, I don't know who, to move 1.2 million people out of Gaza and move them to other countries like Libya. I have said over and over again, in fact, I know a person who advises the president, who's very high up, who advises Israel very high up. And I told him this would be the gravest disaster you could ever make, which is forcibly removing 1.2 million people out of Gaza with donkeys in a line that looks like it's biblical, going back to ancient times when it was done to the Jews. What the hell are you people thinking? So here's something I have not read in the media yet, Alex. I can disclose it on your show. This person said to me, they're not going to be forcibly removed. They're going to be given the option of moving with some payment if they agree to leave. I said, okay, that sounds okay, but I don't really believe it. But think of the optics. 1 million people being forced out of Gaza with donkeys. How's that going to look? Not going to look very well.
It's the ultimate PR disaster. That's what I said weeks ago. I said to Netanyahu and everybody all hyped up over there, I said, you realize you're literally going from being, most people seeing you as the underdog to now being the bully.
Thank you. No, that's exactly what's happened, and that's a problem. That's the problem with this whole war, which is, unfortunately, the world has gotten used to the Jew being a victim. And they like the idea of the Larry David or a Woody Allen type of Jew, you know, the begging kind of funny guy who criticizes himself and is always afraid of everybody. So when they actually see a muscular soldier who's able to kill, they don't like it. First of all, it violates the imagery of the craven, frightened little Jew, right? The image. That's number one. But number two, they don't want any more war. Nobody wants this war to go on, except, I'm sorry to say, it looks to me like the ruling political party in Israel for their own political reasons. Now, we could go back to October 7th, which is a very sore point, Alex. I don't think that they've had enough of a commission yet to investigate how that happened. I would like to know, as an American supporter of the state of Israel, how the most advanced surveillance state on the planet could not have seen early warning signs of rumblings coming from over the border in Gaza. How is that possible? They have cameras up everyone's skirt on that border, right? And then there was a report soon after October 7th that a group of young Israeli women who were in the IDF, who were in the, they were in a division that was in the surveillance department, and they started reporting unusual activity on the other side of the fences. And I read, and I don't know whether it's confirmed or was denied, I read they were warned by their superior officers that they'd be court-martialed if they didn't stop sending out
Michael Savage, this is so important. Let's come back and finish up on this. Take as much time as you need or want. You got the floor. And then let's move into the health revolution you started. Michael Savage, michaelsavage.com. Stay with us. I'm here to report to all of my fellow Americans and info warriors and lovers of liberty and freedom around the world about the current state of InfoWars. The deep state's been trying to take me off the air forever. It's come out in court that the CIA and FBI organized the lawsuits. They had corrupt judges find me guilty and then put on show trials, literally produced by HBO. I cannot continue on in this fight without you. They spend millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars a year continually suing me. We're able to counter every million they spend against us with just about $100,000. We need to raise conservatively $500,000 to win this fight. The Texas Appeals Court has signaled they're about to overturn their fake case here. I can tell you the Justice Department is now looking into this. So this is just like the Tyson Fury story. People see us win a match, they see us become the champion, but then it comes back again and again and again. We get knocked down, we get back up, but this is a long, protracted battle. So for myself and my family, I'm firing the bat signal and humbly asking for your support now at defendalexjones.com. And it will take you to our Give, Send, Go page, and all the proceeds will go to my legal defense and my parents' legal defense. The ball's in your court. I humbly ask for your aid and comfort in this fight. Thank you so much. All right, Michael Savage, I don't think it's a secret, is one of the most well-versed, read people on a lot of wide subjects. That's why I've loved his show so much and so glad he still does some shows. You can find that all at michaelsavage.com and A Savage Nation on X. But continue, take as much time as you need here, because that's my issue. Look, Israel has nuclear weapons. Israel, has a lot of great civilization, society, culture, has overall been a great ally of the United States. They've had a lot of issues with some of the dirty tricks Israel's done, but our government does that. All these governments have different permutations of that. I just report the good and the bad, and some people get mad at me about that. But pulling back and looking at Israel take out Hamas and Hezbollah all around it, have all these stunning victories, and then keep pushing too far. And then I look what all the top analysts say that are even, pro-Israel in the Pentagon, in the think tanks, the RAND Corporation, all of it, saying don't go to full war with Iran because of all the scenarios with Iran and China and North Korea. And my information is they've had the fissile material a long time. So if the mullahs get backed up against the wall, you might see some magic nukes come out that people didn't know about. That's been my CENTCOM sources for a long time. I'll just leave it at that. Highly classified information. And some will say, well, that adds to Netanyahu's argument. We got to take it out. Except I told Trump and told everybody weeks ago, I said, once you blow up those facilities, you'll knock back their ability a long time to make more. But I'm telling you, there's been a lot of stuff taken out. So, and then that becomes a whole, controversy, kind of splitting hairs. But just going back to where you were on where you see this going, because, Israel didn't do too well with Herod or with Saul. We had our revolution to get rid of King George III. And I think what you're saying is, Netanyahu's kind of become a king, and he's doing everything only for the interest, basically, of himself. Is that what you're saying in synopsis?
No, not really. I don't say only for himself. I think you can't separate the patriot from the president of the country, from the man who is doing things for himself, any more than you can with Trump. You could say everything Trump is doing for himself. Would that be true? No. He's doing great stuff for America, but he's also doing great stuff for himself. That's what powerful leaders do, Alex. They're all self-serving to a great extent. Isn't that true? I haven't seen one president who wasn't. Have you ever seen a president leave office in modern times poorer than he came in? I haven't.
No. So then quantify what you're specifically saying. That's a bold statement from you. It's time for Netanyahu to go. Flesh that out and where you think this is going and what type of peace deal you think the U.S. should push for and what you think Israel should do.
Well, who am I to say it? I'm one man among 7 billion on the planet, but I think that the war has been prosecuted to the extent that needs to be prosecuted. I think that they can do a very, very wise deal right now by carving out, first of all, a barrier strip between the state of Israel, or the nation of Israel, rather, and Gaza, by putting in a barrier between them and the folks on the other side of the barrier. No more fence on the border with Israel, but let's say a DMZ, a demilitarized zone, a good strip, just as should be done between Russia and Ukraine, which has been proposed by others. Make it a demilitarized zone between Russia and Ukraine, maybe not as far as the Dnieper River, but maybe up to the point where the Russian-speaking population lives, and close it off and then put in a DMZ zone, like you have in the Koreas, okay, which is still at war. So you need a DMZ zone between Israel and Gaza. And then you need to raise the funds from NATO to rebuild Gaza, if we're going to talk about Gaza alone. And I think Israel needs to consider letting one of the people, have another election and see what happens. It's up to the Israeli people to vote. Maybe they love Netanyahu. Maybe they're not tired of losing their sons in war. Maybe they're not tired of seeing their country decimated. I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe they would like to try peace and give peace a chance. That's up to the Israeli people. But there's something to notice in all of this. When the war was ongoing with the rockets coming from Iran, something stood out to me, which were all of the cranes over Tel Aviv. They were building high rises in Israel. The country is booming because of the productivity and the genius and the enterprise of the people. They want peace. They want to build a nation. They don't want to be fighting wars for the rest of their lives. And then conversely, if you look at images of Tehran, I didn't see one crane building a building in Iran. Did you? Maybe I missed it. I didn't see Iran building any skyscrapers. So I think it's enough death and destruction. And, there's a time for peace and a time for war. Read the Bible. A time to love, a time to hate, a time to peace, a time to war, a time to rend and a time to, build up. And I think it's now time for peace in plain English. I think we have to go back to the Bible, because I also quoted Ecclesiastes shortly before that tweet and perhaps after that tweet, which is a time for war and a time for peace, a time to love, a time to hate. Trump, right after he bombed Iran, became a very peaceful talking man. He didn't suddenly start screaming about, let's take all of Iran, let's bomb Tehran. He didn't do that. He was very smart, yin yang, very, very martial arts like, right? Hit him with the hammer and then back up. That's what he did. And I think Israel needs to back off right now. Here's the problem. They've been at war since God knows when, for so long, they don't know how to stop. Remember when Trump screamed at Netanyahu and
that's what he said. He said they're both crazy. They've been in war so long, they don't know what they're fucking doing.
I loved it. I was shocked when I heard it. I started to applaud, saying, thank God somebody finally said they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Because that's, look, he's like from Queens and so am I. That's the way people talk. If he was in a room with someone who he was talking about, he says, what the hell are they doing? These people, they've been fighting with each other so long, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. So he's saying is someone's got to pull these two people apart, right? Put them in neutral corners and end it for the sake of the world. I think the same would apply to Ukraine, Russia. Okay, this has gone on longer than World War II, I think, or close to it, which is insanity when you think about it. But I know you're hard focused on the Holy Land, and I understand that.
No, Michael, I've been heavily focused on more so because I know from all the different studies we've looked at that war is the only thing that could kill this recovery. Just if they were to block the Strait of Hormuz, conservatively would double inflation, CPI would go up, they'd raise interest rates. And I've had economists on, that would really hurt the Trump recovery that's starting to work. And people say, oh, you just care about money. Well, if Trump doesn't get the recovery, then America and his agenda could fall, then the West falls and the world falls. This is a big deal.
Well, that's why they want war, in order to cripple the economy. You know, the two basic drives of humanity, I wrote this down before the show. Look, two basic drives of humanity, fear and hunger. Sometimes I make little Post-it notes to myself. And if you analyze almost any situation on earth, whether it's war or peace, the basic drives on both sides are fear and hunger, one way or the other, whether it's hunger for food or hunger for power. So how much of this war in the Middle East is based upon fear? All of it. How much of it is based upon hunger? Little of it. It's basically a power struggle at this point. But we have to now focus in this discussion upon the 13th century madmen running Iran. The Iranian people don't want them in power. The Iranian people were an advanced civilization before all of us were here. I mean, Persia. We talk about ancient Persia. So then you had the Shah of Iran, who was a Western dictator. There's no question about it. And I remember very well in the 70s how the left started to poison the minds of American college students, saying the Shah of Iran has to go. He's a dictator. He's a fascist. All the shit they're saying about Trump. And he has a secret police called Savak. And Savak's taking people off the street and torturing them. Well, guess who they were taking off the street and torturing? The very people who are running Iran now, their progenitors are the ones who they were taking off the street and torturing because they wanted to bring Sharia law and the madness of the mullahs into Iran. So the Shah, who was Western educated, had a nation where women had equal rights. Dare I say, women could drive a car? Could you imagine? Could you imagine an equal right? They could drive a car. They could teach in school. They didn't have to wear a stupid 13th century turban on their head. That was the Shah. That was the fascist that the Jimmy Carter people hated. So they overthrew the Shah by undermining him. Come back into Iran is Khomeini at the time, who was in exile in London. And one of the first thing he does is again attack women. It's very interesting how frightened these mullahs are of women's sexuality. They hate their hair because it incites a lust in a man to see a beautiful woman in her hair. So the first thing you do is, what do they do? Cover the hair, right? Then you can't wear a dress that shows your legs. Why? Because men might like you. You can't have that. So cover them with a tent. Give them a 15th century tent, which, by the way, these burqas are not even in the Quran. There's nowhere in the Quran can you find a reference to a woman having to wear a tent. This is a derivative. Well, let
me ask you this, and this is a key point to get to. We're showing footage for TV viewers of the 70s, bikinis, rock and roll. You can say that's, not the perfect example of freedom, but the point is, this is a very advanced culture. Overnight, the crazy mullahs take over, and now we have this new mayoral guy that Sauron, the Sauron guy of Lord of the Rings, and I've noticed is a chameleon. He says, oh, transgender, double the money to cut little children's genitals off. And then over here, he's like, yeah, jihad's going to take over. And I have shots of him at mosques just before he won last week saying, we're going to take over. We're going to win. This is about Islam. And he has this Osama bin Laden cleric up there shooting his mouth off. I mean, literally an Osama bin Laden lookalike. I mean, and then now I have leftist publications, let me dig it out, saying our hope is to block populist uprisings worldwide with mayors like this. And we see all these Western capitals like London falling to these Islamic mayors. And then you have the left, all these liberal women, transgenders, liberals for Islam. I mean, that's like saying that it's totally, it's like saying mice for cats or something.
Okay. Well, how about, did you see Fat Lesbians for Sharia law? I mean, have you seen those?
I've seen it, yeah.
I mean, we've seen the insanity, but again, there's a guy I know wrote a book called that says it all. When you shake your head and say, how could this be going on? There's an answer. Liberalism is a mental disorder in its extremity. So let's go back to the Red-Green Alliance that you're alluding to in this mayor. There's no question in my mind, given that his father is a well-known Marxist professor at Columbia, was not inventing this or supposing it's going to happen. His father is a known Marxist professor and a Muslim at Columbia. Okay, his mother is a well-known Indian filmmaker in America, very communistic. Both parents grew up as a red diaper doper baby. So there's no question in my mind that he is a product of the Muslim Brotherhood here in America, this so-called fifth column, and that the Red-Green Alliance is absolutely, as you mentioned earlier, in favor of this type of personality ruling our cities. When I say the Red-Green Alliance, for those of you who are not politically astute, I am talking about green representing the so-called Palestinian movement and red representing the communist movement. They are now cousins together to bring it all down, girl, because they don't care about the mullahs. They certainly don't care about introducing Sharia law, the left. All they want is a revolution where they think they will thrive, and at which point the communists will take care of the Muslims. That's what they're thinking. Little do they know that the Muslims are 50 times more powerful than they are and capable of killing them faster than the, in other words, the green is going to kill them faster than the red's going to kill the green. So this is very dangerous to see this happen in New York. But I think it's a product of a few things. First of all, this was a primary in the Democrat election. So it was not the general election. Secondly, the turnout was rather low. I think it's important people know that. Thirdly, the exposure of this dangerous Muslim Brotherhood plant in America, this Mamdi guy in New York, was not clearly spelled out by the vermin in the media. They didn't. In fact, they celebrated him because they figured he's cool. He did a couple of rap music things that his mother made for him. Spoiled rich kid from Hollywood. Mother was a filmmaker. So he did a couple of rap videos. But even the smart black people, did you see what 50 Cent said about him today? That was a great tweet.
I didn't know what he said, Michael.
He was sending out something about, the revolution that he's going to bring to New York and whatever. And 50 Cent was a very wealthy performer. The way he put it in the black lingo, I can't repeat it exactly, but he's saying, I'm not buying this shit in plain English. I mean, I'm not into this horse shit that this guy's putting out. So then Mamdi says, well, he's not going to be into it because he's a rich man. But he said, I'm only suggesting a 2% tax on every million from the millionaires. That's only $20,000 per million. So of course, Alex, that's how they do it. It's only 2% now, right? Well, that's how this started in California, where we now pay the highest tax in the state, maybe in the world. 16% is what I pay in the state of California in tax. It didn't start at 16%. It started at a small percent. And then when they spend that money, they want more and more and more and more of the hardworking people's money. So they flee the state. The state is hollowing out. All we're getting in here are the people who want something for nothing in the state. And the real producers have left the state over the last 5 years.
What are you predicting with Zohran Madani? What do you predict is going to happen with him? Because we now have lines around the block for the current mayor, who's a big liberal, but compared to this guy is an angel, and he's out giving anti-communist speeches against this guy now. So it seems to be waking up, like you said, San Francisco's kind of waking up that, wow, we really need to understand that this is dangerous.
Well, even if this Mamdi loses this time, it doesn't mean he's going to be gone. It means a star was born. And we have to be very aware of the fact that Marxism is on the rise in America politically. And the godfather of all of this is the most evil man in the history of American politics in my lifetime, who is Bernie Sanders. He is the most dangerous, evil man I've ever seen in my life. He looks like a harmless, liberal Jewish grandfather who has a tuna fish sandwich in his lapel that leaked out and there's a little tuna stain on the type of teacher in math or the 9th grade, the kind of harmless guy who espoused, communism. Well, he isn't harmless. He is the Pied Piper of evil. He is the godfather of occasional cortex. That's the horse-faced Latina from Westchester who makes believe that she's down with the people from the Bronx. Well, she was a big supporter of this Mamdi, wasn't she? She grew up in Westchester in an architect's home. And then she makes believe she's from the Bronx, which she isn't. I'm from the Bronx. And nobody they know who was poor wanted to remain poor. And nobody they knew wanted to be a communist. They all wanted to make some money and get the hell out of the Bronx. So what's going to happen is he's going to have a long future ahead in politics. He won't win the mayorship. I'm pretty sure that the powers that be are going to put a lot of money behind the current mayor, Adams, and he's going to win. I don't know why Curtis Sliwa doesn't drop out. I think he's not going to do any good for New York at this point. Sliwa cannot win. Number one, he ought to just throw his votes toward.
Did you see
Adams
that Cuomo was saying he's going to stay in? That's only going to hurt Adams.
Well, he's trying to be a spoiler, and it will hurt Adams. It'll hurt New York. It'll hurt everybody. And Cuomo is a member of this corrupt Democrat machine, like the Tammany Hall Democrat machine that runs California, that needs to go. And it needs to go fast, or else they could fall to the scimitar politically. But I don't know that Cuomo is going to stay into the end. I think he's bargaining now for the whatever he can get out of the remnants of his campaign. And that, who knows what it is, some kind of amnesty, money, who knows what it is.
Incredibly well said. I totally agree. Michael Savage, you've been very gracious with the time. We've only got 5 minutes left. Let's spend some on what you said earlier, and later when we post this on X, other places, I'll take what you say now and put it back with that.
Herbal book. This is my latest herbal book. It's the best we've ever done. It started with Earth Medicine, still in print after 50 years. I put my life into this in the 1970. Love the book. This I put 7 years of my life into. No one ever heard of it. It's only available on Kindle. It's actually all of the plants in Fiji to use for healing. It's a work of great labor and of great genius, if I may say so. It's my PhD dissertation in a popular form, and you'll never believe this. This was the first book published by the United Nations. They took my PhD dissertation and turned it into a book under a different title, and I listed it. It can only be bought now on the Kindle. I made no money on this. I put 7 to 10 years into this book. It contains all of the secret healing plants, not only of Fiji, but of the tropical islands.
But the point is, tell us about your new book, because I'm not kissing your ass. I literally owe you so much of my own personal health and funding my operation. If you check the industry, people that don't know, Michael Savage is credited as launching the modern herbal health revolution in the early 70s. He is credited by everybody that knows of this whole giant system we've got that's helping so many people. Did you know what you were doing at the time, or why was it? How did you do it?
You know, it's a great question. Okay, so this is the latest book, and you want to sell it. I think it's a great book.
Yeah, we'll buy it from you. I'll get it from you.
The publisher, I don't make
I'll call him, yeah.
So why did I go in? What was I doing this for? To save the world? What the hell was I doing it for? What drove this boy from the Bronx and Queens to not go to law school, to not become a real estate hustler, to not do anything that I was supposed to do in my milieu, right? A businessman, a doctor, a lawyer, that kind of. What made me go to the islands of Tonga, 9,000 miles from home, or 6,000 miles from home, and sit and listen to folk healers who didn't speak a word of English, and I didn't speak a word of Tongan or of any of the dialects of Fijian, and sit there with translators and listen to them as they showed me their plants and pulled out little writings about what they had, about how their mothers taught them to heal. What was I trying to do? Do I know how God motivates us, Alex? Do we know what pushes us in our life when we are given a calling? Why are you on the media? What drove you here? Your father didn't do this, did he?
No.
He didn't do this. So something compelled you to go into broadcasting and be the...
I was definitely compelled because I saw what the globalists were doing, yeah.
Yeah, but there was something within you, though. You could have done it another way. You could have become a lawyer. You could have become a politician. But you didn't. You became a broadcaster, very successful. You put up with hell. The world has dropped a ton of bricks on your head many times, but you were pushed into this area. So I'm saying there are undercurrents in our subconscious, Alex, that go back generations, multi-generations, or perhaps not even to our own ancestry, maybe to the ancestry of the universe.
Wow.
That speaks to us and talks to us and pushes us down the river of our existence. I don't know how else to explain it.
No, that's beautifully said. It's beyond genetic memory. It's beyond ancestral memory. It's beyond epigenetics. Right. It is the group collective unconscious. I totally agree with that.
So you say, why did I do it? For one, I was always interested in healing. There was a lot of illness in the family, and we were always talking about health and illness and healing. No one was a doctor, but everybody always talked about illness and health. And I had a brother who was born sick, and he motivated me in many ways. And sometimes I think that I do a lot of this because I wanted to heal my poor brother. Who knows? I saw a little boy who was helpless, and I couldn't do anything, and my mother cried, and he died in a home, a horrible death. So this traumatized me. It gave me PTSD. Like, why is the world unable to help my poor brother Jerome? Maybe I can do something. Maybe I can heal people like him. Who the hell knows what's out there in the world? Weird world of herbal medicine, because I knew that the drugs of our world were good for infections, but they weren't good for the kind of thing he had. So where are these healing things? Well, they do exist in places, and many of them were not technological. They were early technology. They were called the technology of God, through the technology of the earth and through the plants and the animal products and the minerals that came up from our earth that we are all part of. And that's what I became fascinated by, Alex.
Incredible.
Truthful.
MichaelSavage.com. Find him on X. Incredible. Best interview ever that you've joined us in. Thank you so much for being here. And please, anytime you got an itch to scratch, you want to come on, we love you, brother. And thank you so much for being with us.
God rules.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael Savage. All right, folks. Wow. Learned a lot from that guy. And literally so much of our modern world with this revolution of herbs and plants came from him. It's simply amazing. I first learned about herbs and stuff when my grandfather was an inventor and a prospector and a bunch of other stuff. And I remember he had one of Savage's books. I forget which one it was, when I was like in high school. He's like, you need to go to the Amazon like this guy. He really went to the South Pacific. You need to go and you need to find these plants, make a salve. And you should be that. And, because he would prospect for uranium, and he found uranium and did stuff like that. It was a really great guy. So I learned about Michael Savage from my grandfather. I'm in a deep state, toe-to-toe legal battle with the Democratic Party. I'm finally starting to win. They're trying to shut us down constantly. You've seen all the dirty tricks. It's all coming out. We're on the major offense. We got huge stuff we're about to file. It'll blow everything else you've seen away. But I need support. And so all I got to do is convince you to back an organization that promotes world peace, justice, sovereignty, freedom, health freedom, and you see all the victories we've had together. That's under enemy attack because they know we're damaging them with the truth. So A, you're backing something that does really good work, our crew, the guests, all of us together, that's worthy of your support, and then it's really great products that work great, because I don't want to sell you something once and it doesn't work. Our methylene blue is game-changing. Our Irish sea moss, game-changing. Our Shilajit, the best. Our turmeric, beyond anybody else, is so strong. We have the best. We have the best gut cleanse. We have the best green superfood, Optimal Human. We have the best prebiotic. We have the best detox blood cleaner that everybody needs. Ultimate Life Force, so good for everything else in your body. We have it all at thealexjonesstore.com. And it's Mel Gibson and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and scientists and everybody about methylene blue, and we've got the best. Here's Joe Rogan recently talking about it.
You were just telling me that you had a brain disease, and what did you do to fix it?
I found this guy as a functional medicine guy, and he got me on methylene blue, and that instantly stopped everything.
I'd take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I take it every day as well. And
yeah, RFK Jr. told me about it.
Yeah, man, it's fantastic. And so this guy's injecting, in 1890, injects these rats with it, and then does an autopsy on these things. And their brain, the brainstem, every single nerve is blue. So he discovered this methylene blue has an affinity for neuronal tissue. So he says, well, it's sucking into neurons and working in the body. So we started putting it in humans. And we found out it's an MAOI, which helps with depression and anxiety and all kinds of life stress and stuff. It is so incredible that it acts as an electron donor to mitochondria, especially your neuronal mitochondria. So it helps you produce more ATP, and it helps you get rid of this stuff called reactive oxygen species. So you have an oxygen molecule that should have two hydrogens on it, and like your body's job is to convert stuff into water so you can pee it out. So if you get an oxygen molecule, it's got 4, 5, 1, it's a reactive oxygen, which we call free radicals. So methylene blue goes in there and balances a lot of those things out in your brain and your nervous system. So it is a miracle, and it's been proven for 100 years. It's one of the most well-proven drugs out there.
The strongest medical-grade methylene blue, and this is what I'm on. Total mitochondria cleaning, next-level energy. This is amazing. And you want to know what I'm on? Irish sea moss, Shilajit. This right here, look at that. That is power. I'm on intermittent fasting. I'm 8 at 3 o'clock today. and I stopped eating crap food, stopped drinking, that's what I'm on right there, baby. This is medical grade, but we don't sell it as a drug. It is a supplement, and you need to talk to your physician before you take, because you're on certain drugs and stuff like SSRIs, very bad interactions. Do your research, talk to your physician or healthcare provider before you take it. And finally, we have a giant sale, the biggest ever on Methylene Blue, a free bottle of the liquid or the same liquid in capsules with vitamin C that accelerates into the cells, free when you buy one bottle of the liquid or the capsules. And those are already discounted on top of it. And if you sign up for auto ship and a subscriber, it never runs out. They hold it back for you. And as long as you want to stay a subscriber, one click on your profile, you can cancel anytime for no cost. You will get it for 50% off in perpetuity, the liquid or the capsules or both. So be sure, now's the time to buy. TheAlexJonesStore.com. We're running this until next Sunday, the biggest sale ever, battling the deep state. And I'm so thankful you've kept us in the fight, and so is the crew. Thank you.